And I'm live. Okay. Welcome to my weekly 10 show. Tonight I'm going to be talking about how we find work-life balance in our lives and how we find happiness, basically. Because when we don't have work-life balance, it invariably leads to things like stress, anxiety, unhappiness in our lives. And let's face it, loads of us suffer or struggle with this. I have. And I know myself from personal experience how disastrous it can be if it goes unchecked. So it's one of the things that I'm passionate about talking about and also helping people with as well. Before I go into that, I want to just make it clear that I'm available one-to-one coaching. If anyone's interested in that, then all I have to do is go over to my website and hit me up with on the contact slip on my website, and I'll get in touch with you and we can set up a call. And there's also a free resource on there still, which is from three steps to turning obstacles into stepping stones. It's a really cool little resource. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, again, head over to the website, send me your details, and I'll send you that over as well. Okay. Right, so a little bit about my experience. So personally, I used to work in the car trade, and I used to work in a very high pressurized sales environment there, which basically led me to working 7 days a week. Sometimes it was 8 in the morning to 8 at night. And it was always push. Everyone was always pushing to achieve more, because the more you work, the more money you earn. Simple as that. And that's why everybody there pushed themselves to work harder. And the result of that is it drains you. It drains you completely. You become unhealthy because of it, because you're not eating properly. You're eating McDonald's and stuff like that every day. You don't see your family as much as you'd want to. You don't do the things that you really want to, like go to the gym or exercise. You don't get time to spend with your friends and family as much as you want. My girlfriend, I'd see her probably twice a week for an hour, and so obviously that relationship struggled. So all of the different areas that make that create our happiness in life suffer. So and I hear this story all the time, really, with different people, friends, clients, coming to me with the same story. Basically, their work-life balance is suffering, and it's a conundrum that a lot of people struggle with. And so, really, I want to talk about how we can deal with that, how we can change the way we see things so that we're not pressurizing ourselves and creating a mindset which is full of anxiety, full of stress, overthinking all the time, and resulting us basically going potty and mental, which is what happened with me, because I had a meltdown and it led to the fight that led to me going in prison. And had I not been pushing myself to that extreme, then that probably wouldn't have happened. So anyway, so what generally happens is when we live in our subconscious mind, basically we create a set of beliefs born out of our fears, born out of our past experiences, assumptions, interpretations, the way we think things are happening. And then that feeds into what we believe about the situation we're currently experiencing. So if you're at work, for instance, and I had this today, funny enough, with a client this morning, where he was pushing himself to the extremes every single day. He's working till 9 o'clock every night. And the reason he's doing that is because he's telling himself that unless he does that, unless he pushes himself to the extremes every single day, other people are going to suffer because of it at work, and it's going to have a knock-on set of consequences, which will be his fault, essentially. And because of that reason, he forces himself to push himself that bit harder every single day. And the result of that is that his health has suffered. He's struggling mentally in terms of his overthinking, his stress, anxiety, all of those things. And it affects his family and his relations around him as well. He doesn't get to enjoy his life. He's unhappy a lot of the time because of this. And when I asked him the question, why do you feel you need to do this? Why can't you just stop at a normal time? He felt that he couldn't. He felt that, no, if I do this, then this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But when you ask someone the question, how true is it that really is going to happen? What you're telling yourself, and you sit back and actually think about that. The reality is, it's not true. So in his circumstance, for instance, he thought that if he didn't do the work until 9 o'clock in the night, then something the knock-on effect would be that the people working with him would then have to do more work the next day. When I asked him that, to reflect upon that, and then say, really, is that true? Is that really true? Is that the case? The answer was no. Because he knew that it was only what his mind was telling him. It was about his limiting beliefs, what he thought about the situation at that time. And your limiting beliefs are born directly from your subconscious mind. They're not born from your conscious mind. And it's the same as fears. So you fear something's going to happen. Like, for instance, with me at work, I feared that if I didn't put the work in at the time, I would end up losing a sale, or someone else would nick a sale, and I would earn less money. So you end up pushing yourself harder. I was the top salesman there. So at the time, I was pushing myself very hard to be the top salesman, and I didn't want to lose that mantra of being a top salesman. So I was pushing myself, and I ultimately lost that anyway, because I was pushing myself so bloody hard that I lost it anyway. So the truth of the matter is we create these beliefs in our mind that then fuel our actions, so that when we go and do these things, like pushing ourselves that bit harder at work or whatever it is, we then lose sight of the reality of the situation, and we become absolutely convinced that that perspective that we're looking at it from is the real only one we can see it from. So I've heard people in this week say to me, I can't imagine having balance in my life. I just can't imagine it. Well, no, you won't, because if you're looking at things from a low energy level, and you're only seeing things from one perspective, how likely is it then that you're going to see the different perspectives that you can possibly look at it from? Because you're only focusing it from one perspective, which is born out of your limiting beliefs, your assumptions, your interpretations, and your fears. So when you choose to consciously think about the situation, you're then able to see things in a different way. You're then able to look at the situation clear of those blocks that I've just mentioned, the fears, the assumptions, etc. You can see it without that. And you can ask yourself the question, how true is this really for me? So you can ask yourself, what evidence do I have that my belief is real, is true? You can ask yourself, how is that belief limiting you in some way? And when I say limiting you, it's stopping you being who you really want to be. It's stopping you enjoying life. It's stopping you being happy. It's stopping you exercising, thriving as a human being, because you're focused only on one perspective only. That's how we find work-life balance, by changing the way we approach things mentally. You're not going to change your circumstances in terms of how long you've got to work or how you do this and how you do that. But what you can do is you change the way you approach it mentally. So if you're focused only on working, the likelihood is you're going to be missing out on a lot of things in your private life. And that will then have a negative effect on everything else that you do in your life. So you have to reframe your thoughts so that they serve all areas of your life in a much more purposeful way. And you do that by consciously considering what you're telling yourself and raising your energy so that you're not looking at everything from a low energy level. And when I say low energy level, that means from a victim mentality. That means from a conflict mentality. It happens when we get drained in any situation. So if you're feeling low about something, you're only ever going to see those perspectives through a lens of fear and limiting beliefs. It's like you're never going to be able to see a positive or the possibilities that you could choose a different perspective from when you're in that sort of energy level, because that's your subconscious mind holding you down. You're not going to be able to see anything other than that. So firstly, you've got to work out how you get out of that mindset in the first place and get yourself into a much more energized way of seeing things, and seeing things through a conscious lens rather than a subconscious lens. That's what I do with clients. I work with you to firstly get yourself out your own head, and then get you into a place where you're seeing perspectives that are different to the ones that you already hold. And you'll be surprised how things change when all of a sudden you're opening up your mind to different things, different perspectives that previously you hadn't even thought of or even considered. And going back to the client I worked with this morning, when I asked him the question, if he was to finish at 7 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock every night, what difference would that make, really? And the answer to that question was it wouldn't make any difference. It wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to the people he works with, because they're already at home watching EastEnders every night. They're not interested in what he's doing. He's sitting here slaving over his computer till 9 o'clock at night because he thinks that he has to do the work before they get into work in the morning, which is nonsense. He knows it's nonsense, but it's how he's thinking. So when you bring yourself out of that mindset and back into a more rational perspective and way of seeing things, suddenly things all change for you. So dealing with overthinking, anxiety, stress, and illness. Illness is another thing, because that's born out of us pushing ourselves too hard as well, as I know and too well. All of these things that we don't want to experience in life are all down to you. You can choose to change that. You don't have to be a victim of that sort of stuff. But you don't. But when you're sitting there in that perspective, telling yourself, "There's no way I can change this. This is my life. I can't do anything about it." That's one of those perspectives, those low energy perspectives, which is keeping you held down and keeping you sat in that misery that you're already in. So, and if you really want to get out of that mindset and you want to find a way to get through those blocks, those limiting beliefs, assumptions, interpretations, fears that are keeping you held back and stopping you moving forward, get in touch with me, because that's what I do. I help you get through that and then create a mindset which works for you. Okay? And that's all, because I'm running out of time. So good night, and I'll speak to you all next time. Bye-bye.